Welcome back to Practical Parenting, the podcast that helps empower parents in the trenches, find joy in the process, and thrive through it all. Today, we're talking teens and social media. So let's start with the facts. About 95% of U.S. teens today use some type of social media. And according to the Pew Research Center, about a third say they use it almost constantly. So we talked about in our last episode, teens are undergoing a mental health crisis. Suicide, depression, loneliness are on the rise. At this point, there is some research that points to the fact that these mental health issues and social media are linked. And even the Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, confirmed that social media for teens is, in fact, a crisis. He actually was on a recent episode of Offline with Jon Favreau, a podcast where he highlighted this. And I think that would be a really nice supplement to this episode. We both listened to it, and I think it confirmed a lot of the things that we're going to discuss today. It dived even further into the larger issue of social media, discussion around social media, especially with teens. But I think today for us, we're going to be really focusing on parents from the parenting perspective, obviously, and how we can support our children through this. So, I feel like throughout history, there's been this proverbial scapegoat for adolescent behavior, crime radio shows were giving kids bad ideas, and the TV was going to rot your brain, and, video games causing a rise in school shootings, but social media is a little bit different in the sense that it's constantly available. And I do think that it's important for us to look at it within the context of our daily lives and how the messages that we're getting and the things that we're consuming on a daily basis affect us as we go throughout our lives. So, we're all dealing with really hard things in this world. That includes our kids and teens, and I think this is a really substantive topic that can go in a lot of different directions. But for the parents' side, what can we do to help kids manage and navigate the social terrain? So I think probably the first big question is, how can we teach our kids to be detectives, so to speak, of their social media use, and instead of just passive consumers, being more active?
Great question, Christina. And I'm going to quote something from Catherine Price, who wrote a book in 2018, and it's titled How to Break Up with Your Phone. Okay, and she has 3 questions for us to ponder before we get onto social media or use anything. And those are: what for? What are you using? What are you using it for right now? Is it, what purpose is it for you? Why now? Does it have to be right now? Can you wait? Like maybe you're in the middle of a conversation with a friend and you got this urge out of nowhere, and like an automaton, you have to get to your phone.
You need your dopamine.
Right, exactly. You need your dopamine rush, and you need to rush to it. So what for? Why now? And what else could you be doing instead of this? Like, what else could you be granting your attention to? Whatever you pay attention to is what consumes your attention, and that becomes you. And if you're consumed with social media and what's happening in other people's lives, you might be actually missing what's in your life. So your original question is, how do we teach our kids to be detectives? Let's ask those questions, because they allow you to have a pause, right? You may decide after all those questions that you're going to do it anyways, but you are doing it consciously and not just subconsciously, my phone's right there, so I'm going to use it. What for? Why now? And what else can I be doing? So I really like that, because that's the pause before you, carry out the activity. So those are detective questions, right?
Yeah.
And how do you fact check? Just because you see something on social media, we have a lot of false news right now. So just as we had to teach our children to, how do you pick apart a statement or something you see on TV or hear on the radio, how do you verify it? So help them learn how to verify what they see and hear. It's just a different medium, right? It's social media, but it's not different from how they eventually learn how to verify truth in what they read or what they hear, right? And then
Teaching them to be critical thinkers.
exactly,
You know.
you're spot on there. Yeah, critical thinking skills. So I think of this as like, oh yeah, it's a new horizon. It's something different, but it's not to be feared because we can't evolve unless there are new things that get our attention, and then we learn how to master the skill for that new product, for that new advancement in science in the world. This is how we all evolve. So I don't have a fear per se of social media, but my goal is to help parents know how to help their children navigate, because most parents who are parents now never had any formal training in how to navigate social media. And we're all as hooked as our kids are. So, what are we going to have to learn for ourselves so that we can model the right approach to it for our children?
And I think a lot of that probably comes from our own fear of not understand as parents, of not understanding. Like I know my husband and I talk a lot about when TikTok came about. I was like, oh, I'm not getting on another social media. I'm not getting on TikTok. And my husband was like, I'm going to get on it because I know our kids are going to be on it at some point, and I want to understand.
Right.
Not just so he could lose himself in it necessarily, but just to know kind of what the landscape was, to be up to date with all of those things. And so I think when you close yourself off and you don't learn about what's coming up, then there is a fear about helping your children navigate something that you yourself don't know how to do.
Exactly. I stayed away from social media for probably a decade or more, and I just got introduced to it last year because of some other things that I'm doing professionally. But I never felt like I was missing out, but my children would look at me like, "What? What are you saying?" Like, And I'm like, so could you do that Instagram thing so I can see what somebody is posting? I mean, I was aware of it, and I knew how to give guidance on what to do, how to do it, but I wasn't on it. And in the last year, it's my own experiment on myself, basically. It's amazing, my screen time on my phone, and you can get that usage every Sunday. It pops up. Oh my goodness. There are days that I am really ashamed to say that I'm averaging 4 to 5 hours on my phone. Wow. And, that's what kids are doing. They're spending 4 to 5 hours or more, on a weekend day. If a child doesn't have an athletic endeavor, there could be 8 to 10 hours of social media. That's mind-numbing, right? I mean, you could be doing other things. You can be engaging with your friends or your family in person, but instead you're in a room. It might be dark if you're playing video games, right? And you have social media friends, right? They're playing the video games with you from other places, but you're not actually making human contact. That's kind of scary. So social media, the claim was it was supposed to bring us closer together. I think it might be actually doing the opposite. And there's some data to show that it's actually making us more disconnected from each other, right? Because many of the things that we see posted are actually what people desire their perfect life to be, and it's not the reality of their life. So you're kind of seeing a facade of the person. And if you're a young adult, a teenager or a young adult, you might be like, oh my gosh, every person my age has this perfect life, and I'm the only one who doesn't have that perfect life. Then you start coming from scarcity. What don't I have? What am I missing on? And that does a huge number on your self-esteem. Whereas if you hung out with your friends, that's, everybody sees your warts, the bumps, the lumps, the good and the bad. But when you're only communicating through social media, you only see the version that people want to present to the world, their ideal, perfect life, and that's not how their life really is. But then it contributes to that feeling of being isolated and disconnected from your peer group.
Yeah, I mean, I think with most things, it's probably just about balance because, we talked about how in some minority communities or with LGBTQIA, communities, this can be a real place for them to feel not alone and for them to connect with people that maybe they wouldn't interact with in daily life. But also if it's too much, online or I guess in maybe if there are specific ways they're connecting, that are you doing it via a video game versus like, a more chat-like feature or something like that. There's something to be said for the different types. But I think just us as parents having open conversations about their feelings when they're on social media, like when they get off of social media, I feel like I have this conversation with my kids right now. If they're on the tablet for an hour and then they get off, they're really irritable and moody. And I point out, hey, you notice you're feeling this way when you get off the tablet. Like, why do you think that is? So, asking these questions to get them to think about, the connection between the two things. Or we talk about how certain games are designed to never feel like enough and to make you want to keep playing and things like that, just to, again, think critically about, their interactions with these things. So, social media has been in the news a lot more recently, I think, especially since Vivek Murthy put this out as a crisis for kids. So, is there like an age where, I think all parents want that hard, fine line. Don't give your kid something before 14. And then they're like, okay, I can do that. But, I'm sure there's not a hard and fast rule.
You know that after we've talked for these several episodes. Everything has, we'll have general guidelines for everything in pediatrics, but then it comes down to the individual child. You as a parent know your child's social maturity level, their cognitive level, and their frustration tolerance, and their ability to do things in moderation. And I've got to tell you, most children and adolescents cannot do anything in moderation. When you like something, you're going to eat the whole thing of ice cream. If you really like those Oreo cookies, you're going to eat the whole thing. I think my brother still reminds me of that when I was a teenager. And he was like, if I didn't get to the Oreos soon enough, Terry was going to eat the whole bag. Oh, my gosh, right?
Now I know what to give you your next birthday.
No, I don't eat Oreos. I don't do that stuff anymore. I only eat healthy. No, baloney, okay? But it's so that we have to help them get to that point, right? It's all about living in the middle zone, in the gray zone, and not all or nothing. And so helping kids learn how to moderate their emotions, regulate their emotions, moderate and regulate how they approach something that they like or don't like, right? Those are big life skills, and we have to do it age appropriately. When it comes to social media, early on, how you will help your children learn those skills will be different on the guidance that what you'll give them when they're adolescents and older adolescents, young adults, right? So in the beginning, it's like, well, teach them, like, this is a tool. This is, it might be nice to keep in touch with families and friends so we can just share pictures of what's going on in our lives. But it is not for the all-consuming of like seeing every picture that someone took on vacation, because some people do feel the need to post like everything, right? And you don't need to do that all the time, because if you're so busy posting, you're actually taking time away from enjoying the activity that you're posting about, right? So what's the commodity here that people who program social media do? We have to teach our kids, and I think they don't know that. Once they know somebody's trying to dupe them, they're going to be, can't be had. I'm smarter than you. And so we have to tell them, like, this is designed to steal all of your attention, okay? It is designed almost like a slot machine with the bright colors that really get your attention, and then the music that gets you into the groove, right? It keeps you there, and it keeps you wanting more. And there was an experiment that was done where we had discussed this, where it was something colorful on social media. You have the same post and it's black and white. And there was not that much interest. So the folks who are programming all these apps know how to draw you in and how to keep you, and their goal is to keep you addicted to the app. And then, whatever you like to look up, there are also algorithms to know to bring you more of those materials. For me, it's about looking at cute dog videos, Like, what can dogs do? Oh my gosh, isn't that so cute? And I know for me, it's like a way to connect to my adolescent daughter who loved dogs and animals. So if I see a funny dog video, I send it to her. But really? I mean, shouldn't I just like hang out with her or hang out with her and our dog instead of sending her like videos of other people's dogs doing funny things, you know? So it's learning how to modulate and regulate and how to help them know that this can be a very useful tool. It's not all bad. There are very few things that are all bad or all good. Right? So just like you have to show your children, you know, what's appropriate programming to watch on TV or how to find the truth or fact check the truth behind statements. How do I use my social media for what I need instead of it using me for what it wants is my constant attention, right? And in the long term, if you keep doing that, it actually sucks away your attention. Okay, so constantly being on social media, you know, you're always looking for stimulation. That's why sometimes if you've spent many hours on electronics, it's really hard for those kids to settle and go to bed because I have all this hyped up energy and they're needing constant stimulation. And then there's no stimulation in bed. So, like, how do they calm their bodies down? So that's for our next topic on sleep. But social media in the bedroom, electronics in the bedrooms are no-nos for sure.
But I do think that gets to a point that I wanted to make was that there's the social media itself, which we have to, you know, learn to regulate and manage. But then there's what the social media does to us in the rest of our lives. And so, you know, if you're on social media for extended periods of time, it's likely interfering with your sleep. You're not getting as much, or it's not as fruitful as it could be. And, you know, things like that, where in even the connection outside, you know, you're on social media, you're not connecting with people, that's fueling this lack of connection, this loneliness, you know, which is also a epidemic, according to the Surgeon General. So, you know, I think it's also at least pointing that out to adolescents especially, you know, that this is affecting them outside of the thing itself.
And maybe like give suggestions for different times of day that it really is a phone-free, app-free, social media-free time. Like for 1 or 2 hours. For sure, I would recommend family dinners are essential to keeping a family together and keeping a family engaged together. So phones at the dinner table, like there are very few things that are absolutes for me, as I was talking before about gray zones. But no phones at the dinner table. No phones in the bedroom, no electronics in the bedroom because they distract you from sleep. And if you happen to get up in the middle of the night, it's going to be reflexive that you look at your phone, right? And do you really need to check your phone at 3 a.m. when you're going to the bathroom? I don't think so. But it might delay your ability to go back to sleep, right?
Sure.
And what there are studies that have shown you lose your attention. I mean, you have poorer attention and focus the more you're on your electronic device or your social media. It's not helping with your memory either. And you're not doing the work of childhood and adolescence. It's learning how to interact with people, how to connect, how to build relationships. Relationships are not built on social media or electronics, right? You have to talk to people. You have to see their face. You have to see their hand gestures. You have to learn how to read body language. You don't get a lot of that on a screen. So really, it's if parents can frame it that this is an important thing, it's an important component, and you can have it serve you rather than it controlling you, and you're an automaton in the process. Because that's what the makers of apps and social media want, right? They want your attention. Your attention is a big, special commodity that you have, okay? So don't give it away freely. What you pay attention to is what you're going to focus on. And do you really want to focus on something that doesn't inspire you or bring you to the next level or grow or evolve you? I mean, everybody needs like some mindless time, don't get me wrong, on
Sure.
TV, on screens. but hours and hours of it when you could be doing something else. Remember those 3 questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
What for? What else? And why now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think so, setting boundaries around some of those things early as a family, I think is really important. Like you said, no phones at the table, no phones in the bedroom. That's something that you can start early, and then it's just habit forming. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
But, if you haven't started those, if you find yourself in this position now where you know it's gone too far, but you don't know how to sort of backtrack, I think it's certainly not too late. And I think that, we talk a lot on this podcast in our 3 episodes about modeling behavior and how, you can be doing this along with your children to develop healthy habits together, questioning your own usage and theirs, or talking about it together and just sort of walking through that behavior together. So, I think, it's never too late. You have a resource that we talked about in terms of, verifying apps or other things for social media. Do you want to share that?
Common Sense Media. It's great. It's parent ratings on apps, movies, anything that your child can interact on through social media, the internet. So if there's a new app that's out there, see what other parents are saying. I learned from Common Sense Media when my children were in middle school that there was a popular app back then that could track your child. Yeah, I didn't know that, but I learned it from this site, and I'm like, okay, nobody needs to have that. And I told my kids why.
Yeah.
So always give your kids a reason. That was the other thing. A blanket like, no, you can't be on it. Well, if you say, because they can track you, and I'm really worried about strangers tracking you.
Yeah.
Your whereabouts. Remember how we don't get to tell our address and phone numbers and where we are, and we don't want to put it on social media. Well, it would be awful for somebody that you didn't know. That they would be able to track you. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that too many, even teenagers or adolescents would say, okay, no, they don't, because they don't even want to know. They don't want you to know where they are. Why would they want strangers to know where they are, right? So give them a reason for it. I mean, treat them with respect, meet them where they are. Don't treat them like they're dumb and, because I said so. That's what I feel like my parents said a lot, and that's just doesn't fly, right? That's not good enough reason for our children to follow any of our suggestions or recommendations. And then, the one thing that I find that kids are really motivated by is that, can I get to the next level? It reminds you of video games, right? But how can you get to the next level as a family? How can we get to the next level of how long, maybe even a contest, like how long can you go without your phone? Is it an hour? Is it 2 hours? And how do you feel? So it's about the reflection after you do it, right? Okay, like, what it is, what young adult hasn't said, I could have gone to bed probably an hour or 2 earlier, but I got hooked on whatever, even Netflix, right? So what happens if you shut it down in the beginning, you'll feel anxious. You'll feel like you're missing out on something, FOMO. But over time, okay, you actually might feel less anxious because you're not having to be constantly stimulated or comparing yourself with others, right? I mean, that's a sense of freedom. And creativity comes when you have pauses in your life and you have just open space to, look at the clouds, kind of really do nothing. And being on an electronic device, being on the phone, being on social media, that's not doing nothing. It's sucking your energy and your attention, but that's not just time to be. I'm not saying you're going to sit there and, meditate at the pond, but, just like, do you know where you are? Have you seen the haze that we've had in the last couple of days in Baltimore?
Just read about it on
You
Facebook?
only read about it? Exactly. And you're seeing the pictures from New York and Philly and go, oh, No, have you been outside? Well, hopefully not too much, right? But did you look? I mean, and the sky at night, at sunset, the sun looks different. I noticed that. I look for sunsets. I love sunsets, but I was like, wow, I haven't seen that color at sunset. And that's something that, you have to spend a few seconds at least to observe what the before and after. So really, make it a fun thing, make it a family activity, and it'll be hard at first, but as soon as, you will, I mean, you have to know that there's a bump in the road, that, it's like a shock when you take away anything that you really like. I'll just speak of Lent for the Catholics out there. Like, you're giving away, you're not going to eat candy or ice cream, whatever your favorite food passion is. It's really hard the first week, but it gets better with time, right? So the same thing with electronics and social media. When you first do less of it, there's this anxiety, like you've got to reach for something, you've got to do it. But over time, and to build a new habit, 21 days, and you got to do it every day. So maybe you start out with half hour, 1 hour breaks, and then you can increase it. And maybe you'll be so great that your family could do like one night without social media of the week. Maybe
That's why I've really been enjoying this offline with Jon Favreau's journey, because he, I think at the beginning of this challenge, said he was spending upwards of 6.5 hours a day on his phone, and that doesn't count the time he spends on his laptop doing work, which
Right.
also likely
Yep.
includes Twitter and all of those fun things. But the effects that he's had from, just completely cold turkey, getting rid of his phone for a little bit, and things like that, just the reflections that he's had. He said he could not read a book prior to this because
Right.
his brain wouldn't let him focus long enough on a long form piece. And once he was able to get over that hump of a few days, it was like so much easier for him to engage with something. And so, it is possible we can learn to live without these things and sort of backtrack a little bit and get some balance back in our lives.
Exactly. Couldn't be said better.
Yeah, I really like that don't let social media use you.
Yeah. What is it that children are always, what are many of the conflicts between parents and children, regardless of the age of the child, is this strive for independence for them and that strive to be in control. So perhaps you paint the picture that, you're actually giving in to the Godfather or whoever, the powers that be, when you give away your precious attention to apps and social media that aren't doing anything to help you grow or evolve, but it's sucking your energy and your attention on mindless things. And it may be impacting your mental health because, you're focusing on what you're missing, what you don't have, rather than even appreciating and attending to what you do have. And the folks that you could be connecting, so you're losing connection by being on it. So there is so much more to be gained, but the key is to help your child or your young adult know that you be the master of it. Don't let it master you, because if you just, automatically, habitually give in and just pick up your phone anywhere, anytime that you're at. Sometimes it's out of boredom, sometimes it's out of angst because you don't know anybody at a new place, right? Try something new. Like, instead of looking at the phone when you're riding in an elevator, how about you smile and you say, have a good day to somebody? That makes their day, and then it makes you kind of more joyful as well, and you've actually had interaction with a human being. I mean, that thing on the phone, it's not giving you, like, immediate human relationship contacts. So, we need to relearn. I know COVID really brought it down as far as our social interaction skills and our relationship skills, but we have to climb out of that hole and climb out of that isolation and learn to re-engage with each other in person. We have to do it as parents so that our kids will learn how to do it. And, you might actually like it. We might like seeing people in person rather than all those meetings that we all have on on screens, right? Those Zoom meetings. Or children did not learn well. Remember, it's during COVID for school, they did not, because that was not true engagement between their teacher and them. So that's like living proof of why it's not such a great way to interact.
Solely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are probably the three main takeaways is, social media doesn't have to be scary. We can engage with it in a healthy way, so we can take that fear out of it. And then just having open conversations with your kids about the things that they're seeing or, how to interact and think critically about what they're seeing and how they're interacting. And then just modeling behavior or at least working together with your kids to form healthy habits. So I think we can all get through mining this social media landscape together and come back out on the other side.
Absolutely. We're going to use it and it's not going to use us. And we're going to take a pause and really know what our motivation and our why for why we're doing it. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say, before we sign off, let's hear the three questions again.
Okay. What for? Why now? What else? And I totally credit to Catherine Price, who wrote this book, How to Break Up with Your Phone. So if you really want to step up to the challenge.
It's pretty small, too.
Yeah,
so.
It's really small, and it's an easy 2-night read.
Yeah.
I mean, she really gets into it about what the phone is taking away from us and what you will gain by being phone-free. And she has a 30-day detox on this. Yep. It might be too much, like, as a starter.
Yeah.
But at the very least, consider doing that pause, and chipping away in small chunks. One of the other things is, why don't you put a timer on when you're using social media? That's pretty easy, right? Just like I did
that for my Instagram.
Yeah.
I only can look at it 20 minutes a day. And then when it's done, I say, okay.
Yeah. And so, like if you're tempted while you're doing something else, you're like, no. I can do that.
I'm not going to give myself more time. I'm going to find something else to do.
Yeah, well, set the alarm. No, set the alarm on your phone. And you can do that and show your kids, like, it's hard for me too. And then, maybe reward yourself after you get off of social media to doing something that's fun. And then that creates a new habit loop, right? You gave up something that you thought you liked, but you're going to go on to something even more fun. Yeah, so why wouldn't I drop my phone if it means I'm going to go out and get ice cream? For me, that would be great.
A motivator, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a motivator. But whatever the motivator is for each individual parent and child, that's how we couple changing behavior, is that you add to the behavior that you want to change something that is attractive and motivational to you so that you will do the thing that you need to do because you want to get to your reward there. And then eventually you don't need that reward, right? Because you'll finally, after some period of time, your brain will click in and go, actually, I feel less stressed when I'm not on social media. I'm having better conversations with my friends, my
You'll
mate.
see the results.
Yeah, or with my children. Because if we're all on social media and we're all, on our phones, we're actually not communicating, and then we're misunderstanding each other more, right? And that causes more conflict. So it will be a win-win. But just like in anything else, if you want to build a new habit, you have to give it time. And, if you fall off the wagon one day, it's okay. Start it anew the next day. There's always hope. The sun always comes out, and you can do it again. So you got this.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll let people get off their phones now and go do something fun, and then you come back next month and visit us again.
Exactly. Okay.
All right,
we
well,
got
thanks.
you. Thank you.
See ya.